When I started making these videos, I knew I wanted to keep the emphasis on recipes relatively low. Because when you're cooking for yourself at home, you're usually not following a recipe. Instead, you're just using whatever ingredients you have on hand, you're making something up as you go along, and you're tasting it, you're adjusting it, and you're paying attention to your food. And this takes a little bit of practice, but ultimately it makes you a really good cook. But what about baking? When it comes to baking, is it important to have a recipe and to measure things accurately? Well, it depends on your goals. If you want something to turn out precisely the same time after time, if you want consistency, then yes, I would recommend you get a digital scale, you find recipes that you like, and you follow them. But if you just want to throw something together with whatever you have on hand, then the good news is that baking can be just like cooking. If you have a basic understanding of what ingredients you're going to use and how they're supposed to affect each other, if you pay attention to your food as you go and you make adjustments, then you can end up with delicious results without following a recipe. So with all of that in mind, here's one way to throw together pancakes. We're not going to measure precisely, we're just going to make it up as we go, we're not going to worry too much about what ingredients we have, and we'll see how it turns out. Are you ready? Get yourself a spoon. We'll add flour first, since we'll judge how much of every other ingredient to add based off this portion. I want enough pancakes for 2 adults, so let's go with about that much. Baking powder lightens the texture of our pancakes by creating bubbles within the batter. Generally you want about a tablespoon per cup of flour, but I'm going to err on the light side since I tend to like thinner pancakes. Salt. We don't want bland pancakes. Measure with your fingers to build up that seasoning muscle memory, and start modestly. We can always add more later. Let's take a look at what we've got going on. I think I want a touch more flour to make sure I have enough batter. Alright, mix everything together with a fork and let's move on to our wet ingredients. Being both protein and fat, eggs add structure and tenderness to baked goods. They can also be frothed into fluffiness, but since we already have baking powder as our leavener, I'm not going to bother. A few years ago, I started adding yogurt to my pancake batter because I never seemed to have buttermilk on hand, and I've never looked back. The acidity of the yogurt balances out the sweetness of the pancakes and also helps activate the bubbles in the baking powder, just like that volcano experiment when you were a kid. For the rest of the liquid, let's do a good splash of milk but my milk is running low and I want it for tea, so I'll make up the difference with oat milk. Again, err on the light side. We can add more later. Beat everything together to break up the egg, and now we're ready to mix wet and dry. Check the consistency of the batter, and yeah, this is a little thick, so we'll add a splash more milk. Now is a great time to realize that a fork isn't the right tool for this job and grab a rubber spatula. Now that's looking better, so we're going to do a good glug of vegetable oil. We know that generally oil and water don't mix, but the starch in the flour will emulsify this mixture, making our batter silky and smooth. Finally, it's time to taste. Raw pancake batter might not sound super appealing, but it's not going to hurt you, and it's great practice to start to connect what you taste to what you've put in. Wash your hands if you're putting your fingers in your mouth on camera, then make any adjustments you need. I think we need a little more salt, and I'm also going to add a touch of sugar. Not too much, since we'll eat our pancakes with maple syrup later, but all that yogurt made the batter lean a little too acidic. Taste again to confirm we're on the right track, and we're good to go. Now for cooking the pancakes, if you're like me and you have a crummy electric stove, make sure you give yourself plenty of time to get your skillet hot. We're not going to grease our pan. Instead, we'll rely on ample heat and the oil present in the batter to keep the pancakes from sticking. Use a ladle to control how much batter goes in the pan. Then take a moment to observe what's happening. You should hear a sizzle. If you don't, your pan's not hot enough. But if it's smoking, it's too hot. Look for bubbles in the surface of the pancake. This is a sign that the baking powder is getting hot and activating, which tells us our pancake is cooking through. The bubbles also show me the way my electric range is heating unevenly, so I'll rotate my skillet to compensate. Use a spatula to lift up the edge of a pancake and check the browning underneath. When the color is to your liking, give them a flip. They only need a moment longer to cook on the other side. Snack on any tiny pancake drips in the meantime. To make a larger pancake, I'll use a couple ladlefuls and gently push the batter out in a circle. Once again, track the bubbles on the surface and the color of the underside in order to gauge how the pancake is cooking. When you're satisfied, flip as before, and that's that. Enjoy your pancakes while they're hot, or if you're like me, enjoy them at room temperature several hours after breakfast when they've been sitting out on the counter. Either way, don't be shy with that maple syrup. Well, there you have it. We made pancakes. We just threw them together. We didn't use a recipe because we don't need one, because we have a basic understanding of what ingredients go in, roughly what the ratios are supposed to be, what role they play in the pancake. And we were paying attention to the consistency of the batter as we were making it, so we were able to adjust our liquid and have it come out with the consistency that we wanted. They're pretty good. It's a simple thing to make. Pancakes are not complicated. There's actually a lot of room for appreciating the details in making anything in the kitchen, especially simple things. So I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you go out and make some pancakes, and I'll see you next time.